Today's call is part two of staffing. If you are watching this video, you probably already found it, but part one of staffing is also in the school group inside the classroom. If you look for the green slide that says staff and scroll down, you'll find part one of the staffing concept. We're going to recap some of the things you should have done in part one. If you didn't do those and you're watching this live, you can go ahead and follow us along today. Make sure you pause it and go back and do part one, because this is really what we're trying to build on week after week. We can win on culture when you can't, or you can win on culture when you can't win on pay. Most of us are in this group because we are considered somewhat a smaller business in our service-based industry. So there's other people that might be able to pay more. They might have bigger backing. Maybe they have some financial backers, or they're actually a public company that we're competing against. And a lot of times when it comes to dollar for dollar, it's hard for us to compete on that level. But we can build a culture that someone that's more publicly traded or a bigger company usually cannot create. And that's what we want to cover today, is how do we create an actual staffing journey so that we can compete with those type of businesses. Before we start today, you should have built your system already. That system consists of 5 or more key things. Have you already created your values? Do you understand where you, as the CEO and leader, live in your sphere of genius? Are you able to live in that sphere of genius more often than living in the day-to-day, in the grind? Most of us, if we're at this point in our business journey, we've heard the phrase, we want to work on our business more and not in our business as much. And when we're working on our business, it's even multiplied when we can work in that sphere of genius. Where do we get the most excited, the most energy from working in this particular space? So if you haven't identified your values and where you get the most energy yet, those are the first 2 steps. Once you know where you get the most energy, we need to understand where are you at in that value ladder. It's important to pause for a second and realize there's 2 areas I'm talking about. Values, as in adjectives, words that describe your business, are different than a value ladder, which I'm now talking about money and finances from a value standpoint. So in point 3 is understanding where are you at in your value ladder? Are you doing hopefully at least $75 an hour roles, depending on your business? For many of us, that should be looking at 100, 125, 150. And probably the top people I'm working with are in the $200 to $250 an hour range for what they're worth to their business. But many of us at some point in our week are still falling into those $50 or less areas. At some point in the week, you might be picking up something that didn't get picked up, or cleaning a bathroom, or doing payroll, getting something that could be outsourced for less than your value. For more on the value ladder, we have plenty of other videos, but that's an area you need to look at. As your business grows, have you at least penciled out or labeled out what an org chart or communication chart looks like? I don't need you to dive deep into that today. Your name might be in every single box right now. Ideally, we want to climb that value ladder and then start to pencil, keyword, pencil in the org chart so we can erase our name in figurative language later on. And then we want to start filling that in. And then we talked about it, funding the hire. How do you actually have enough money? We talked about the idea of 2x, 2.5x an employee returning. So if you haven't done any of that work yet and you're watching it live, continue on today. Make sure you go back to it. If you're watching this in retrospect, it's probably a good idea to pause this video and go back and get that work done and come back to it when it's done. Everything today is building off of those principles. You need them to be done, or at least in progress, for you to really build a staff journey, because this is beyond. You've hired them, you've identified where you need help, you've done all that work. Now we're getting them on board, and that's what we're going to talk about. How do we keep them? In my business, when I owned it, we had one of our longest standing employees worked for us for 13 years. Now, remember, we were just the local small CrossFit gym, quote unquote, when we opened. And this employee stayed with us for 13 years. So we had to have done something right, I hope, that kept her there for a long time, and many other staff members as well. I would say 90% of the people that we did well, how do I say that? 10% of the staff that we turned over were usually because they moved or they had a major life-changing event. It wasn't because they didn't have good staff culture, and that's what we want to build today. So the question is, how do we become a place people actually want to work when you can't always write the biggest check? We're not always able to fund people, but we can provide things that other people cannot provide. If you're watching this live, you may have already read my newsletter that came out today. And if you didn't, this is going to be a reminder of that. There's a great story, and it comes from, the book's not going to come to my mind. It comes from a couple different books. And this is a blended story. It was what I've taken from this particular story. So let's take that, because if you've read this story before, you might think of it different. Charles Schwab, and not the financial guy, this guy that was in charge of Bethlehem Steel, he went in and noticed that his night crew, or one of his crews, were underperforming. So he made 6 pieces of this particular equipment, but he knew they were capable of more. He didn't say anything. He didn't give some rah-rah speech. He was trying to build a culture. He was trying to motivate people to see that we were capable of more. So he wrote the number 6, and then the next crew came on, and this 24-hour shift type of work. They came on, they said, what's this number 6? And someone said, oh, that's what the last crew produced. So they were motivated without any words, and they said, oh, we can beat that. And they produced 7. And this went on, and I don't know the exact number, but for crew after crew, and then they finally were all producing a higher volume. They ended up producing 12 or 15 bushels or whatever they were doing. It wasn't that anyone was motivated by doing more work or working harder. They just knew they could beat their peers. The way I established this story is that there was a culture where people felt proud of the work they were doing. They weren't just coming in and clocking in and clocking out because they were trying to get a paycheck. They knew what they were capable of. They knew they were motivated by their peers. And if they all produced more, then they had an opportunity for everybody to win. When I look at our businesses in the world that most of us live in, we all have a pie. We have a piece of pizza, right? And we can only take so much percentage as owners. We can only take so much percentage to give back, but the pie can grow. And so maybe we had a small pie, a small pizza to start, and we're going to grow to an extra large pizza. It doesn't mean the percentage changes. But 10% of $1 is much different than 10% of $1,000. It's still 10%. But when the numbers go up, we could take larger pieces. And that's what I'm taking from this story is these shifts, these people, they knew they could do more. It wasn't because they wanted to work harder. It wasn't of their job so much. They just realized if they produced more, there was bigger pieces of the pie. There was more for them to get. There was bonus structures built in. There was other opportunities for them. And it wasn't just a clock in and clock out type of job. So I want us really thinking about what are we doing that creates this type of culture within our business. Again, some of you might read this story and think of it a little bit different. This is what I'm taking away. So what are we doing to build this culture inside of our business where people feel motivated to show up and not just do the job, but do it to the best of their ability, but to the best of your expectations? Inside the gym world, a phrase that comes up very often is provide people with the best hour of their day. One of the things I highly encourage people inside Perfect Day Living to be writing out is, what is your expectation in 1 hour of work for someone to produce what I call a 10 out of 10 or a perfect hour? And then the big question with that phrase is, could I, your mentor, your coach in this case, cold call one of your employees right now, grab their phone number, cold call them and say, hey, I'm working with the owner. Can you tell me what your expectation is in 1 hour of work? Is it so abundantly clear to you what a perfect hour looks like that you could tell me without having to look it up? That's what I believe in this story that we're looking at here is these people understood what they were trying to achieve, and they knew they were capable of more because they had clear expectation. I feel strongly that many of the people that are early in their days with perfect day living have not established this type of culture. Some of you have. Phenomenal. I'm really happy to hear that. But if I'm saying, could I cold call one of your employees and it's making you a little bit sweaty in your seat and you're like, oh crap, what if he did? What would they say? What would they say a perfect hour looks like? If that's a little bit confusing to you, then we definitely have work to do. And that's what we're working on, is setting the expectation so that you have a group of people who are excited to work for the business that you're producing. I've said some of this, but it's worth repeating. He never gave a speech, at least in the version of the story I've heard. He didn't offer more bonuses. He didn't go out there and try to rally the troops for just one more for the Gipper, if you know that story. He simply produced a culture where people were excited to do the work. He created the design. He knew what people could do. And it was in the design, it was in the production of the culture that he did have an influence on as an owner, that it got more production from the staff. So designing your culture well costs creativity from you. It costs you to kind of rethink outside the box, think different, get different. But you don't always have to think more money, more bonuses. We can find ways to motivate people. What would writing a chalk number 6 on the ground do for you in your business, in theory? There's no cash involved in it. One of the most important things that you guys have to start thinking about is that our staff is usually one of the highest, if not the highest, investment we have in our business. Depending where you're at, what kind of business you have, you might have cost of goods or you might have rent to pay. But outside of that, staff is usually in the top 2, if not top 3 of areas that you have an investment in. I actually had a great call this morning where someone was saying, oh my gosh, I hired this employee 2 months ago. They are so good, but I can't really keep affording that. And she was directly defensive of the cost of the employee. I said, does that employee have the tools? Do they have the knowledge and the wherewithal to say how much are they producing for your business? And the owner was very confused. And she was like, what do you mean? The first rule of thumb we need to be thinking about is our staff generating at least 2x their salary and revenue? If I'm paying a staff $20 an hour, are they producing $40 back? That's not always easy to calculate. So if that number's hard for you, depending on your type of business, please bring it to a group call someday. Let's calculate it together, because there are ways. It usually comes back to you as the owner defining what success looks like and working backwards. So if you tell a staff member they should finish a job in 1 hour and you paid them 20, well, when you go out and sell that job, are you selling that job for at least 40? That's just a quick example. But if I sold a job for 40 and a staff member gets it done in 20, then they produce 2x because I made the 40 in that hour and only paid out 20. That's how you can continue to grow. A great staff member could produce 3x their value. This might be someone in the sales role. If you pay someone $50 an hour for sales, but every time they make a sale, it's $150 or $200 in an hour, then you're getting that math. So again, these are easy examples. Some of your businesses are a little bit more difficult. We could talk about it in person. Chris Cooper, one of my mentors, two-brain business owner, he takes it further. He says every staff member should generate at least 2.5x. A lot of the books I've read have said 2 to 3, but it is important for you to think about it and define what that means for you. When they're producing at least 2 or 3x, this is covering your ability to take more as an owner, their wages, their overhead, and still leave some profit. When we stop seeing staff as just a bottom line number and we start seeing them as the engine that produces the business we want, that gives us the lifestyle we want, we start to see bigger returns on our investment. We have to go back to the original steps from last week. If you watched that video, if you haven't, I encourage us to create what we call the red, yellow, green. Anything that you're putting in red that just burns your energy, that sucks you dry, you need to be thinking about if someone's in the red zone and you hand them, are they going to be able to produce money? Are they operating in their genius? Because when you get your time back, you get to grow more. You get to create more revenue and everybody wins. So if somebody else is really good at social media and you're just like, I don't want to log into Instagram another day of my life. Go find someone that loves that type of stuff. Let them log in there. And if you never log in again, are you spending more time with your family? Are you making more sales? Are you creating more opportunities for the rest of your team? These are the things we need to be thinking about. If you hire someone else in their sphere of genius, everybody wins. And you can go grow more things for your business. So think about how are you showing up and how are they showing up? We're going to take a pause here in a second. This is going to be your first homework today. I want us all to have a pen and paper. So if you're kind of away from the screen, come back a little bit and think about this. Write down one hire you've been thinking about. Is it an admin person, a payroll person, a coach, a front office person? What is the one thing that just come across social media? I said that a minute ago. What's one person that you've been thinking about hiring? Don't worry about any other preconceived thoughts. What would that person free you up to do? Again, money's not in here. Don't think about money. What is that work in revenue worth to you in a week? Social media is a quick example. For most of us, social media should be about an hour a day at most. For quick math, if we paid $20 an hour and we did that for an hour, 5 days a week, 20 times 5 is $100. If that's not easy, in the advent of AI, we used to have to go to Glassdoor. I talked about this last week and look this up, but in the advent of AI, this should be pretty easy. So let's take a quick pause. What's one role? And if you have questions, let me know. Or if not, go look it up on social media or AI and find that worth. Okay, once you have that number, make sure you write it down and keep it handy. But the point of today's call and today's video, if you're watching it, is not to compete on money. So what else is in our scope where we can incentivize people beyond that? One of my favorite books that I've mentioned very often, and there's a couple books in this genre. This one's called Power of Moments. Another one is called Unreasonable Hospitality. And again, inside the school group, if you go into the classroom and go to the bottom, there's a whole library of books recommendations in there if you want some more stuff to look up. We can create powerful moments within our business very frequently. And this is what changes us from being a big corporate type of business to being the amazing mom and pop type of business that most of us are. We understand our business. We understand our employees' needs because we are living right alongside most of them. How many of you, drop a 1 into chat if you have at least a 1 week to 1 month journey for your staff? On day 1, they get something physical. You meet them at the door, you greet them, you have an onboarding system set up for them in day 1 to week 1. Drop a 1 into chat. Okay, we have one person's volunteering this. Drop a 2 if you're like, whoops, didn't know I was supposed to do that. Okay, so we have that. One of the smallest things we can do on day 1 is have a cup of coffee for them, or a coffee card if there's somewhere local they could drive, or send them something the day before they start. That's a Uber Eats gift card or something. Something small that's really easy to say, hey, you're joining a really cool place and we're going to help you jumpstart with a little caffeine on day 1, whatever it might be. Then we need to think about, so that's day 1. We need to think about week 1, month 1, and then milestones, anniversaries, achievements, big wins. What are other things we can be doing? And then recognition along the way. You might have vacations you can do. You might have other things. We need to get those small wins built in with the big wins along the way. And this is the staff journey. This is what we're starting to build. Think of your employee experience as a timeline. And the biggest thing, the biggest word on this whole slide right here is the intentionality behind it. I'm going to give some examples. I've given some of these in other calls in the past in a moment. But if you could be intentional that people are just excited because they know they're going to get way more than a work culture, they're going to get a culture beyond their third space, they're excited about it, then you're creating something more than that. I've seen some companies have little boxes that are branded that turn into lunch boxes if they want to, or bags that maybe they can give their kids, but it'll have a shirt, a hat, it'll be a handwritten welcome card with a gift card inside it and says something like, we're glad you're here. Then at the end of that first week, maybe you have a $50 gift card to a restaurant and say, we're so happy you enjoyed your first week. Here's dinner on us this weekend to celebrate your new job. Small things that, although it's expensive in the moment, if this staff member stays for another 6 months or another year longer, you don't have to repeat this process too often. So it might feel like, oh, I'm investing in this person in week one, a lot of money. Yeah, but if you keep more staff longer, you don't have to repeat week one ever again. So that's the whole point of doing this correctly. And then in the first 90 days, check in. Maybe you invite them off to breakfast or a lunch later on. Hey, I'd love to check in, see where you're at. This meeting is more just about you and what you're enjoying about the business, what's going well. Do you need anything else? Have I missed any tools? In the gym world, maybe they haven't upgraded their CPR and they need CPR to be in the gym world. Okay, great. We're going to do that for you at this point. Small things that they might have. And then you better, and if you're not doing this, I'm not even going to call you out right now. You better have saved something in your calendar that reminds you when their 1-year anniversary is at your business. And then their 5-year anniversary, and really just every year. It should be a calendar reminder, something simple that says, hey, Daniel's now been working here for 1 year. And actually, that should be 11 months later because you need to give them the gift at the 12-month mark. So these are small things, but you're busy. You have a family, you have a life outside your business. Well, so do they. And we're already saying we showed up to this call for a reason. Most of us aren't paying the top dollar in our industry. We're trying to, maybe some of us are. Well, what else are we doing? Well, a simple, hey, congratulations on your 1 year. We love having you here is going to be a step in the right direction. And then doing surprise and delight consistently and intentionally. I'm not sure about the international culture on this, but in the US, it's common that we're going to do things around the holidays. We're going to give holiday bonuses and holiday gifts. Those are nice, but those are almost expected in some industries. What are you doing on the random August 15th day? What are you doing on May 8th? Another just random day that surprises and delights your staff. These are small things we want to do. These are a few moments from my own business career that we did that were awesome. I've talked about the first one a few different times, but an event that cost me about $1,200 to $1,500 is still remembered to this day with some of my old staff members. Lululemon, which is a predominant clothing store, we were very close. They stayed open for a half hour longer. They actually provided us food, and we spent $1,200 in gift cards. They just provided some snacks and some beer for our employees, and we had an hour-long shop night where they had dinner and snacks, and they got each of our employees had a $120 gift card, and we took 10 employees, and they just got to buy something and have some free dinner. It was just a fun, simple night. We also went to some baseball games a few times. We actually gave our staff 2 particular choices on this one. It was go to a baseball game if that's something you like. We paid for all expenses that day, which again cost us about $75. Or if you didn't want to, we actually provided a day spa trip, which cost us about the same amount of money, where we allowed some of our staff to go opt in to go to a day, get like a massage for an hour. So they could choose. But all of that's business expenses, which is if you're in the US in the tax world, some of that comes back from your taxes, not all of it. And that changes as the tax code changes. And then the last one that was one of my favorites, one of our owners had a fairly nice kitchen and we were able to host people. And we had a catered dinner at his house for 12 staff. And the staff loved it. Have any of you ever been to a catered dinner at someone's house? It's really a fun little experience to sit there and enjoy it. Now, maybe you don't have the house to do it. You could do it in your space. You can go rent out a little bit of a hall. But when they bring the dinner into you and you could just sit back and it's not a restaurant, it's not busy and all, just you and your staff, it could create a really cool culture where there's no agenda. And it's just, we're just doing this because we love you guys. We love you as a staff and we want you to have a free dinner on us tonight. So again, these are just 3 examples that I've done. I'm not telling you guys to go do these, but this is not me competing on money. If I paid one of my staff members an extra $100 a month, you guys are all smart. 100 times 12 is what? 1,200. So if I paid one staff member an extra $100, I'd eat up that $1,200 that I spent at Lululemon on one person. But instead, I was able to provide $1,200 on an experience for 10 different people. I'm not saying either of these are right or wrong, but that was the choice we made, and it was still $1,200. So we have to be thinking through the experiences that we're creating for our staff. So let's think about this for you guys. If you're watching this on record, pause the video after this. And if not, we're going to pause in a moment. Think about your staff right now. Write down one powerful moment you could create this month for under 200. Something specific. And I want a person, an idea, and I want a date. Something they would still talk about a year from now. I'm going to give you guys a good 90 seconds. And I don't care if you make this up completely. I just want you to really think outside the box, and maybe you'll get some motivation from someone else on this call, or come to the school group and ask us for motivation if you need it. On the live call today, we heard quite a few good examples, handwritten notes, gas cards if you have traveling staff members, dinner notes, clothing, apparel, different things that really help people. So if you're looking for motivation, there's a few ideas. And if you need more, come to the school group and we'll be happy to answer that. A couple things is maybe you offer a flexible schedule for the month. If you're maybe slower in the summer, you could say, hey, we're going to give you guys every Friday morning off in the summer. And maybe you cover that portion of the schedule, but they still get paid for it. Maybe you give them something like a career roadmap meeting where you say, we meet with you once a year and we're going to talk about, here's a great place you could go continuing education. In the fitness world, maybe you pay a gift card to a weekend-long seminar, or you send them off to an educational piece, or the CrossFit Games. In your own industry, maybe you guys have industry-specific events that people could go to. That's a double win because they get a weekend away, but they also get to learn about your industry and come back more educated. So that one does cost a little, but it's a way to career roadmap with them and show them I'm invested. Sometimes small wins mean a lot. Title progressing. A regular coach becomes a head coach. A journeyman becomes a full-time electrician, or whatever it might be. Just a small title change that maybe it comes with a bonus check, but it doesn't come with long-term pay yet. So you have to be careful. Your industries are all a little bit different, but some people just want to be patted on the back from time to time. And that title might be a little bit more, oh yeah, I got a little bit of a promotion at work. Behind the scenes access, maybe you invite them into a leadership meeting. Maybe you take them with you on a continuing education thing. So whatever it might be, but there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. I personally love the flexible scheduling in the summer, especially if you have employees with kids. If you could cover something like that, where again, maybe you don't have as much of demand on your schedule and you cover. For me, I could coach some classes. It was easy. You know what? I'm going to coach all the Friday classes in July and August in the morning, and I'll let my staff have that morning off, but I'll still pay them. So that's just a simple example, but it's just not something you can always do, but it might be. Maybe you know some of your kids play football in the US and that's on Friday nights. Hey, you know what? I'm going to let you get off every Friday at 2:00 for the fall. So you could always be at your kids' sports games on time, whatever it might be. Small things like that we have to think about. Some other ideas. This is just the bigger list. We've already covered about that. There's welcome kits, staff appreciation events, surprise and delight type of gifts, a staff book library. Maybe you guys have a little library in the office. That's fun where people can do that. Maybe you pay for someone's Amazon Prime for the year. Something simple like that, Karen, right? Like you can do that. So there's different things. Some bigger ones I've already mentioned: professional development, weekend-long seminars. Another great one we did is we had a $1,000 budget for our staff each year. It was written into their contracts, but they had to apply for it. So all they had to do was write us a little note. They could type it up. Hey, I want to go to this weekend-long seminar. And then we would approve on it as long as they showed good intention. What we didn't want people was to go on a weekend-long fishing trip and spend $1,000 on something that didn't help us. They could go to the seminar. We'd give them half the money. If they came back, then we had them write a recap. What did you learn? What are some of the key takeaways? And again, as long as they gave me some type of reasonable answer, we would give them the other half of the money. We just didn't want people to go off and Yahoo around with $1,000 and just flush it down the drain. So that was one way we did it. Every contract, every full-time staff had $1,000. Not all of them applied. Some of them didn't use it. And if they didn't use it, they lost it. It was just part of the contract, and I didn't mind that. Tool or equipment investments, things that they'll keep with beyond working for you, but maybe it'll help them be a better employee now. For us, it was a computer. It was a laptop for our social media person. And she got to use it. We bought her a really nice MacBook. And when she decided to quit, she had to work for us for 4 years to use it. And after 4 years, she was going to keep it for free, because at that point in our minds, it would be a little bit obsolete. But if she left before 4 years, she would have to pay us $250 if she wanted to keep it for every year she was with us. So she left after 3 years because she moved. She said, hey, I'd love to buy it off of us. I can't remember the exact math, but she paid us the extra money and she kept the laptop. Cool. That was a great perk for her. She paid $250 for a MacBook. That was a $1,000 MacBook at the time. Plenty of other things here, pay time off, wellness stipends, things like that as well. We've already broke down a lot of this math, but I want to break it down on this slide with you. A $2 an hour raise for 20 hours a week costs about $2,000 a year. Just the math is there. You can do that math if you want. But for that same $2,000, you could provide all of these things: a welcome kit, continuing education budget, the quarterly staff events, more surprise and delight gifts throughout the year. So we have to really continue to balance this. The bigger companies, the people that have the extra cash flow, they might pay more. Sure, $2 an hour, $10 an hour. But they're not recognizing their employees as much as we can with that same $2,000. And this is just for one employee. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 employees and you're paying them all $2 extra an hour, then that's a lot more than the $2,000 I'm saying here. So you can do more. You can be more powerful. And most of the time in the US, especially, the tax laws will give us a better benefit for spending money in our business than we get for employee taxes. So sometimes knowing that with your accountant is really important as well, because, oh, well, what if I threw a little weekend retreat that cost me $4,000 for my staff? Well, technically you get 30% back on that. I don't know what the tax laws are right now, but sometimes that's also a very important thing to keep in mind, that you'll get a better tax benefit for some of these things. The last thing, and I want you guys to really take this one with you, write down 3 things you could offer a new hire that have nothing to do with hourly pay. 3 things that would make someone say, this place is different. Again, maybe on day 1, they walk in to a $200 bonus to a local clothing store. Maybe they walk in to on Friday after the first week, they get a gift card to a really nice restaurant, and the reservation is made for them, and a babysitter is already aligned for them if they have kids. Like, you can go really crazy for these things and still be within budget. What's something that has nothing to do with their hourly pay or their salary that you could do for someone that really changes the type of business you are? I want you to really think about this, especially for you, those of you that are actively in the front end hiring process. I just helped someone hire this last week, actually. Literally, we're going through it. And I, as a mentor and coach to this person and they're local, I am actually going to meet with the staff member tomorrow. And they're going to let that staff member have access to me once a month for a 30-minute meeting, just to have mentorship and guidance as a perk. And they're paying me for the mentorship already. So I'm just going to go there once a month for 3 months. That was a perk to them. And this person's a young entrepreneurial type hire, and they were really excited about it. So there's a lot of ways to be creative that you can do things for new hires. And I want you guys really thinking about, you set the tone on day 1, week 1. I don't love to read slide word for word, but this one's worth it. When your values are clear, your staff journey is intentional. If you've been with me long enough, you know I harp on values. When your values are clear, your staff journey becomes more intentional. It goes back to the most powerful 5 adjectives you have around your business. You become intentional about the powerful moments consistently. You stop complaining that people are leaving because of money, and you create a place, an environment, a culture that people are excited to be at. They know that this is way more than just a dollar trade for time. We stop competing on that, and the culture will win more times than the dollar. So if this sparked something in you and you haven't done it, go back and watch last week's video. If you need a link to that, by all means, shoot me a message. We'll get you that. Make sure you get those precursor things done, the values exercises. Build a full system that's custom to your business. We're actually going to work on this at the Perfect Day Living Summit in September. So if you can come to that, we're going to spend a good 2 hours doing this work. So those of you that freeze while you're doing this live on this 1 hour meeting or need extra help, we're going to dive into this together and do it out loud. And if you want the complete framework around all of that, shoot me a message. We can do it on your one-on-one call, or we're going to do it at the intensive.